If not, I apologize. So, all right. So we're gonna go, today starts the 12-hour new agent course. So as you got your real estate license, one of the first things when they sent you your license, it says you have to take the 12-hour new agent course before you renew your license. And so what we're gonna do today is start the first of those 6 classes that will meet the criteria for the 12-hour new agent. So go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This 12 hours is not because I'm new in the company, but because I'm new with my license. That way.
Yes, that's the division. So it's something that the division requires. Now, the good news is though, even if you're not new, which I'm assuming everyone in here probably is new, but if you're not new, you still can use it. So the reason I say that is just know, even after 2 years after you've renewed your license, I do this course on kind of a rotation about every 3-ish months. And even once you renew your license, you could come do this again. Even though it's called the 12-hour new agent course, you still could get 12 hours of CE by coming and doing it. So, yeah. So for that, looks like we only have one online, which I'm surprised. We've got more in person than online. That's the first time this has happened in a long time, huh? There's been Vince here by himself many times. So, but for you guys that are on Zoom, oh, there's one person connecting, so I'm gonna wait till their audio is connected. Okay, so for those that are on Zoom, you guys have to keep your camera on and be able to, I have to be able to look over and see it, that you're there and paying attention, or I can't give you credit. So here's how it works. So we'll have 6 classes. So this is the first, and then next Tuesday we will do the second one, and Thursday the third, and so on. So Tuesdays and Thursdays 11, and then once we've done that, then I will give you the 12 hours. So just as a reminder though, it's either 12 hours or 0. And a lot of times people will say, well, I came to 2 of the classes, can I get 4 hours of CE? And it doesn't work that way. It's either all or nothing. So
how about if you did so many last time and there's some that you missed?
yeah, so that's the thing. So I have a spreadsheet that I keep track of the ones that you have attended. And so once you have attended all 6 of them, as long as it's in a reasonable time, meaning like if somebody waited a whole year to come back and do it, then I probably would say like you got to start over again. So, but if it was the next time I did it, or even maybe the one after that, then I would still count it. But if it got longer than that, they would have to come back in. So
can we check out the class we do to see what they're?
yes, you can check with me on that. So it looks like we may have computer backup. So let me try this real quick. See if I can get everything launched here. So while that's connecting, which means it's probably not really back fully up yet. So we're going to start it today. The idea of today's class is about the CMA. And so we're going to be talking about how to do a comparative market analysis. And where I always want to start with on that is doing a CMA is an art. It is not a science. Now, I struggled as a brand new agent. I really struggled a lot with that because I wanted it to be a science, not an art. And so for me, it was a big struggle because I wanted, and there are programs out there like the Cloud CMA from the MLS, things like that. There are programs out there that you can go and sign up for and use that treat it as if doing a CMA is a science, meaning that if you just plug in the information, it's going to spit out, here's the price of the house. And I wanted it to be that way, but it's not that way. And that was a struggle for me because as you'll see, as I write on the board, I am not artistic. So when I say it's an art, it's not a science. I struggled with that because I wanted it to be a science. Like in high school, I loved math. Like I loved the idea of that you just follow the formula and it works out versus in art class, when I would draw something and the teacher would be like, oh, that's horrible. Like, you know, and I'm like, but wait a minute, I thought it was art. It's like, it should be fun. But anyway, so just keep in mind that doing a CMA, a comparative market analysis, an art, it is not a science. And because it's an art, not a science, what that also means is that there are different approaches that you could go about and do this. So I'm going to share with you the way that I do it, But that doesn't mean it is the way to do it. And if we had another manager or broker come in here and teach, here's how I do a CMA, it would be slightly different, probably how they would approach it. But the idea though should be that we end up at about the same place. But just so keep in mind that it's an art, not a science. Now, part of why I say that too, that it's an art, it's not a science, is because there are times that I'm doing a CMA where I may approach it a little bit differently because of just like the gut feel, if that makes sense. And so meaning that's where the art part of this comes into play is there are different times based, and I would even say to some extent, different parts of the valley where if I was doing a CMA, I might approach it a little differently in this area versus that area. And again, it boils down to just because of the experience I've had with it, which I know maybe that isn't exciting to hear if you're new, is, you know, because what if you don't have the experience? But there is an art piece of this where you're going to kind of just approach it. And so I'll even show you as we go through it, because we're going to actually do a CMA on a property that was the first house that I ever owned. We're going to do a CMA on that property. And I'm going to have you guys tell me what you think it's as far as the price and all those kinds of things go. But well, at least I should say, I hope we're going to. If we can get the internet back up, I could do it on my computer so the people on Zoom would see real well, but you guys would all have to come huddle around my computer to see it because I don't think I can get it onto the screen yet, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. So you don't need to, you can if you want to. You're more than welcome to get on the MLS and follow along if you want, that's fine. Although the internet's down, so if you're on Wi-Fi, it won't probably work as well. Yeah, so yeah, and the Zoom just keeps saying connected. So anyway, all right, so that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to go through, I'm going to walk you through the process that I would go through. And like I said, I think I can figure out a way for us to even get it on the screen if I have to just be using my phone as the hotspot to show you. I think we can get it. But here's where I want to start is part of what we're going to talk about in these 6 classes are things that the division says this is what you have to talk about in order to give you the CE credit for the class. And so, and the reason I say that is I actually was teaching these 6 classes we're going to do. Well, 5 out of the 6 classes were classes that I already was teaching before the division ever came out with a 12-hour new agent course. And in fact, I sometimes like to think that it's because of me that they did. And I know that's not true, but I say that because 5 out of the 6 things that we're going to talk about in this 12-hour new agent was stuff I was already teaching to the agents before the division came out and said, you need to every agent has to attend this 12-hour new agent. Well, what happened is I had an agent that had come through the training program that I had trained on 5 out of these 6 things that we're going to cover. And then they left and went over to the board to take the 12-hour new agent course. And when they came back, I said, hell, so how was the 12-hour new agent course? Because it was still pretty new at that point. So I really didn't know anything about it. And the agent said, it was really boring. And I said, well, why was it boring? And he said, because everything they talked about was the stuff you had already taught us in what we call them tech skills. So these 6 classes, or the 5 out of the 6, were what I call tech skills at the time. And they said, you already taught us that in the tech skills. So it was already stuff I knew. So that got me thinking, well, if I'm going to teach this anyway, because it's important for you guys to learn as an agent, then I should just go get approved from the division to teach the 12-hour new agent course so that you don't have to now go over to the board to take the class. So that's kind of the background of why and how this all kind of came about. So, all right, but so the reason I say that is because where we're going to start is something that I didn't cover in the past, but the division has said part of what we have to talk about is this. So this is where I'm going to get you involved now. Okay, so part of what the division wants us to talk about is the difference between an appraisal and a CMA. So I want to hear from you guys. What is the difference between an appraisal and a CMA? So as you guys start to answer for me, and sorry, I know my computer's sliding over here, so it's kind of crooked for you guys. But I'm going to try to see if I can get Zoom working here at the same time. So go ahead, Vince, you have the.
So a CMA is a uncredited plan. So you're looking at houses nearby that are closely related to your subject property.
Okay.
And using their value to deduce your market value.
Okay, good. What other thoughts? Oh, that's a good sound. Sorry. Let me get this going.
Maybe by an appraiser, right? Like, and they cannot perform it, like it has to be by somebody.
Hang on one sec. Give me 1 second. to
Okay.
get this. Sorry, because I'm not hearing you very well. Well, I'm thinking too much to try and get this. And now it's.
Oh, you're recording.
All right, echo should be going. Okay, I'm gonna turn this up so that if they show up online, so the internet's back up and stays up. And hopefully you guys can still hear us, but I'm guessing it's actually not on because they're frozen.
I can hear you.
You can still hear? Okay. I'm gonna just trust that you can. Okay. All right, so go ahead. It was Davinia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. What
yeah,
was
I
it?
was just saying that, so an appraisal has to be done by an appraiser, right? Like it's not, like
Can you guys hear me all right? Still?
Now I can. It went away for a little bit though.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm gonna just probably leave it on this because the internet's still coming and going, so. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was wondering if the internet is going.
Yeah, it's gone again. So, okay, so let's talk about per minute here's the idea of the appraisal is when the appraiser goes out, it is kind of a neutral third party. The idea is, and stop and think about.
Recording in progress.
Now we're gonna echo again. Echo. All right. Should be good again. I apologize for you guys on Zoom, and if we lose you, I'll try to keep an eye and keep bouncing back and forth. And this is becoming very disjointed, and I apologize, but hopefully it'll come up and stay up. All right, so to come out and do the appraisal, the idea of that being is, think about it this way. If you were going to give somebody money to go buy a house, you would want to know, like, okay, if I give you this and you don't pay me back, can I go get the house and be able to sell it and get at least most of my money back? That's the idea of the appraisal. So keep in mind that the reason and the purpose for the appraisal is it's the mortgage company. So the buyer is paying for it on behalf of the mortgage company. It's not necessarily that the buyer is getting the appraisal because it gives them the peace of mind to know what they're paying for the house is a fair price or whatever. I mean, that is part of it for sure. But the real reason behind it is the bank is giving money on this house and they want to know, if the buyer doesn't pay them back, am I going to be able to go take the property back, turn around and sell it and get my money back? Which, if you stop and think about that, that's why there is mortgage insurance. If somebody's putting very little money down, the purpose of mortgage insurance then to ensure that for the lender to know that an insurance company is going to basically guarantee it, versus if they put 20% down, now the bank's looking at it saying, okay, even if you don't make your payments, we should be able to take the house back, turn around and sell it for at least 80% of what you bought the home for, and therefore we get our money back. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So So the appraisal is done on behalf of the lender to help the lender know and have that peace of mind of I'm going to be able to get my money back, which, by the way, banks are not in the business of owning property. So it's not like they want to own a house. So they're not out looking for opportunities to go foreclose on somebody, but if they're not getting paid, then yeah, they're going to do that because they want to get their money back. And therefore, if they take the property, they're going to turn around and sell it for whatever the market value is. But essentially, they're just concerned with, I want to get my money back. And if possible, get a return on. May take us way off track. And so if I do, I'll bring us back in. But when they foreclose, they're not trying to sell it for a profit. They just need their money back.
Exactly. So they can keep moving the money for them.
That's right. Yes. So, okay. So does that make sense? Okay. So versus an CMA is just us giving our opinion of. Now, so here's the next question for you. It's a little bit of a trick question, but not really, but maybe a little bit. Which one is more accurate?
Your friends.
Okay. So I've heard 3 people say appraisal. What about you? What do you think? Appraisal. Okay, now tell me why then. So for you guys that are saying appraisal is more accurate, tell me why. Why is the appraisal more
We can
accurate?
skew the CMA based on the values in the area, and what's actually out there. But an appraisal is an actual assessment of the property itself. And
Okay.
what its value is based on current conditions in the marketplace.
Okay, good. Vinny?
We agents are a little biased. We want the price to be higher, maybe.
Okay, good.
Like, it's gonna be like, oh, yeah, sure.
I like that. Good.
The lender has to have a for sure answer on value of property, so he doesn't get scammed.
Okay, so the lender wants to make sure he's getting a good value. Okay,
It won't be correct.
could be correct.
But I have one more that you said about sometimes we can be influenced by the seller, like maybe they really want to get a higher price, so we feel that pressure and then we might just feel like, oh, they really want this price, let's just go higher, you know?
Yeah, no question. We could be influenced by. Mentioned earlier that there are programs that treat it like a science to where you just plug in the information and it spits out an answer. The reason I don't like those programs and again, remember, this is an art, not a science, my personal opinion. It's not like there are other people that would come in and say, you have to use these programs because they're so wonderful. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them. I'm just saying I don't use them. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't and couldn't and all of that again. But the reason I don't is because what I noticed, Davina, is exactly what you're saying. When I was using those programs and I would go and do a CMA for somebody, what I found is that I would be influenced by the seller number that was going to make the seller happy. But does making this the number that the seller wants, is that really gonna, I mean, that's half of the equation. Is in fact, one of the things that I like to say is this: with a seller, we're not looking for the highest bidder on their home, because who is typically the highest bidder on their house? Themselves. So I usually tell the seller, the price. So what you're saying, Davini, is right. The price you think the house is worth, your home is worth more to you than anybody else out there because it is exactly the way you want it. It's the perfect house for you. You created it, the updates, everything you've done was perfectly for you. So we're not looking for the highest bidder on your home because we already found it. It's you. We need the next highest bidder. And so to some extent, we got to help the seller to understand we're not looking for somebody who wants to pay the same price, especially with where the market has turned to now. Like a few months ago, yes, we could have said, we're looking for the highest bidder and it's higher than you because whatever you think your house is worth, somebody else out there will pay more than that. So that's changed though. We are now back to the point where the seller is the highest bidder and they think their house is worth more than everybody else in the market. So we're not looking for the highest bidder because you're it. We're looking for the next highest bidder for your house. And so you're just going to have to know you're probably going to have to come down off of what you think your home is worth to get to that, which that was a long rabbit trail from we get influenced by it. But yes, that is no question. We end up being influenced by the price that the seller wants. Now, let me tell you though, I'll remember that it's a little bit of a trick question. In my Sorry, went down again, apparently. I was so excited thinking it was gonna stay on. All right. So, my opinion is just, I think for the most part, we do a better job of pricing property. Now, I'll tell you why that is. In the public's mind, which is why I said this is a little bit of a trick question, because I knew what you guys were gonna say, is in the public's mind, though, where do appraisers stand in relation to us, car salesmen, attorneys? Like, the public puts appraisers like way up here on a pedestal. We're way down here with the attorneys, the car salesmen. We're like, in their mind, we're down here. And an appraiser's up here. So if the appraiser said it's worth this, then it's gotta be worth that, and we are wrong. Well, I can understand where that comes from, but I kind of just want to say that the more experienced you get, the better I think we do. Now, here's why. Let's talk about now for a minute. So hopefully you guys on Zoom can see the board a little. I don't know how well you'll be able to see. So sorry, I'm going to slide this over so hopefully they can see. But-
Recording in progress.
Oh. Now we're gonna, sorry, now I gotta mute you again. Sorry, now I gotta mute you again. And you have a delay apparently. But what should happen now is they'll be able to see, so that's good. So can you guys hear me okay? Thumbs up. I see it, okay, good. All right. So let's talk about, so how does an appraiser, and the reason we want to start with, does this feel like disjointed to you guys as it is to me right now? Or are you guys okay? Okay, good. Because like I'm one thing thinking about what we're talking about, and the other things keeps going, okay, I got to keep an eye on Zoom. So I feel like I'm all over the place, so hopefully you guys don't. Okay, good. So let's talk about how an appraiser does an appraisal, okay? Because I put Luz to sleep, so.
Russ, we lost you again.
Sorry, we lost you online again, huh? Sorry. I don't know what to do to try to fix that so it doesn't echo. Oh, actually, yes, I do. I know what I'm gonna do. This will fix the echo. Might not fix it on their end, but. All right, can you still hear me? Okay, good. Because I think you're on my AirPods now. Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, now it shouldn't echo when it comes back on. Okay, so if an appraiser is going to do an appraisal on this house, we have to start out with the same process that an appraiser is going to use, because at some point along the way, even though I said to you guys, I feel like we do a better job of pricing property, and I've got a story I'm going to tell you of what that is in just a minute, of why that is that I think feel that way. But we still have to start with doing it the same process they're going to do it, because at some point along the way, even if I've come up with, here's what the value of the property really is, and I say that a little too confidently, but that this is what the value of the property is, we're going to have to deal with an appraiser. And if he comes in and says he thinks it's down here, who wins? Yeah, at the end of the day, the appraiser wins. So we got to know how they're doing this and do it kind of the approach the same way, even though I feel like there's some things we're going to do that's extra above the appraiser, which is why I feel like we are a little bit more accurate in what we're doing. But let's start with that. So if here is the house, what are some of the things, how is an appraiser going to determine the value of this house? So like, obviously they're going to go out and look at comparables, but what are they looking for? What are the criteria? So give me some criteria that you guys know or think. Okay, so let's start with what you're saying there. I'm going to say the style. Okay, so we want to have the same style of home. Okay, what else? Okay, good. So the age of the house, good. And then size, good. So I'm going to just put square footage. Size, good. Okay. And yeah, I'm just going to say lot, but yes, lot size. What else? Okay, so I'm going to just call it condition, but we're going to include upgrades in condition because to some extent, you're right on. Is we're going to look at what are the upgrades that the home has, but also I kind of am going to liken that a little bit to condition. And the reason I guess I'm saying that is because, which I always have to remind you of this. If you can't, even though I just said I'm not artistic, if you can't spell a word more than one way, you're not very creative. So when I misspell a word, just remember it's because I'm so creative, okay? All right, so condition. So I'm gonna say, yes, it includes the renovations. Here's why. And again, keep in mind when I say this, there's gonna be exceptions to every single thing. That's what makes it an art, not a science. But depending again on the area, the house and all that kind of stuff, like a lot of times the seller's gonna say, well, look at all these upgrades I've done. Well, a lot of times those upgrades don't add really any value. Well, like for example, let's say that somebody goes and puts in brand new carpet. Like, oh, for example, we had the flood here Friday. There's brand new carpet on the other side of the building. Okay, does that change the value of this building? Not really. But a seller sometimes may go, oh, it's upgraded carpet. I paid a ton of money for that carpet. Well, that's great. But when the buyer shows up, it's just carpet to them. They don't, does that make sense what I'm saying? So to some extent, when you bring up the upgrades and stuff, depending on the area and all that kind of stuff and the size of the home, like it might make a difference, but a lot of times the reason it matters to the seller is because it's important to them. And if a buyer comes in and is just like, it just looks like a stove to me, like I don't care about that, then it doesn't add value to it. So again, like I say, I'm not saying they don't add value. Please don't hear it that way. But I have just found looking at the condition is more important than the upgrades. Now, again, there's exceptions to this, and there's no question. Like you could go, oh yeah, but what about this? Yeah, and I might go, yeah, that is an exception. So that's what makes it an art, not a science. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. All right. So what else besides condition?
Based on a certain adjustment to the property itself, like do they have to follow
So yes, I think the answer is kind of yes and no. And so yes, but I don't think it's an exact like this is how much a garage is worth kind of a thing. It's more, and which by the way, and this is why I hate this so much is the value of a garage the same in Magna as it would be in Draper? Is the value of a bedroom the same in Magna as it would be in Park City? Probably not. So that's the hard part is it's kind of like and that's the struggle that I have with these programs because on the MLS, the programs we have, if you go in and change the number of bedrooms, it has a value that it's going to adjust from that. But the question is that really what a bedroom is worth? And to me, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, correct. They're going to have to look. Yeah. And so here's the struggle is the neighborhood that I live in is a PUD. So it's a planned unit development. And the values of it are way different than the homes surrounding it. And so early on, when we first moved in, the first people that were selling their houses, which I was an agent at the time and ended up helping a number of them do this, an appraiser would come in and try to use comps that were just outside of the neighborhood. The same builder that built my neighborhood built a neighborhood just to the west of where mine is, but there's a huge difference in the value between the two houses, even though it's the same. So it could have been the exact house, but it's just outside of the neighborhood, and there was this huge difference in it. And so when the first few people that sold their houses, appraisers would come in and go give it a value based on that, to where it's and where we really had the biggest problem is you'd get an appraiser that would come from Provo into Salt Lake into that area and try to do an appraisal, and if they're not familiar with the area, it can make a big difference. So yeah, right on.
I noticed the HOA.
Yes. Yeah, the HOA can make a big difference based on amenities that they have, based on how much the HOA fee is. All of those things play into it. They should. And appraiser, sorry, I got to make sure I repeat, because I know for sure that they can't hear you now when I'm on my AirPods. So I'm going to keep repeating, but know that it's for the guys on Zoom. The question was, does the appraiser take into account the HOA? They should. But the problem is, if they are from an area and they're not familiar with it, then they may not. So. I would say typically it's the other way around. Mm-hmm. It's because of the amenities that come with it. Mm-hmm. So it's a planned unit development. Basically, anything that is part of an HOA is probably also a PUD. So. It shouldn't. It shouldn't, but locate. I would say location does. I don't think you can say demographic can.
Take into account, say the same neighborhood, maybe the same street, but when back to the highway, one back to the park.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, so sorry, I keep forgetting to repeat for these guys on Zoom. So he's asking, does it matter what backs up to the house? So let me give you this story real quick. I was going to do it anyway, and this timing is perfect for it. So part of where I came up with this whole idea that I feel like we do a better job of valuing property than what an appraiser does is, I had a guy that lives in my neighborhood that his mom died. And the home that she owned was on just off of Atherton Drive. If you guys are familiar, like 4700 South, and about probably 9th West-ish. Like, do you know where Four Lakes Golf Course is? If you know where Four Lakes Golf Course is, it was just to the east of Four Lakes Golf Course. Well, his mom died. He calls me up and says, "Hey, my mom's passed away. Can you help us sell her house?" I said, "Yes. Let's set up a time. I want to come out and take a look at it, and then I'll go back and do a CMA." So he says, okay. I go out there, I look at the property, and when I got there, the home was built, I don't remember, early 2000s. So and at that time, it was still a fairly new home. So I go out and I look at it, and when I got out there, she had the home built. So again, it's built after 2000, no basement. And I said, why do all the houses in this, because it was one cul-de-sac basically that was this builder built, and I said, do all of these houses not have a basement? And he said, oh no, this is the only one that doesn't have a basement, all the rest do. Okay, so that all of a sudden now makes this property a little bit unique. So I said, okay, and I went back to the office to do my CMA. Well, I get done doing the CMA, I come back to him, and then he tells me that he had an appraisal done, which the appraiser that he used actually just lives up the street from me. So like, picture it that like, if my house is right here, the guy whose mom died, his house is right here, the appraiser lives right there, like right in between us, okay? And so he says he's done an appraisal on the property. And I said, okay. And he said, but I don't want to tell you what he appraised it at because I want to see what you think. And I said, okay. Now, so remember this, this is to reinforce that this is an art, not a science. The challenge, how many homes have been built since 2000 in the Salt Lake Valley that don't have basements? I mean, and I don't expect you to know an answer. I don't know the answer, but a lot, a few. Yeah, there are some, but for the most part, here's what I will tell you, close to that property, there were none. Like there were no houses built about the same time this one was that had no basement. So what do you do then? Because one of the things we haven't talked about yet, so let's add this in and then I'll come back to the story. What else does an appraiser not, oh, actually, no, let me tell one part of the story, then I'll stop. Also, right behind their house was a mobile home park, which, so you're bringing that up, reminded me. Right behind their house is a mobile home park. So no basement, and it backs up to a mobile home park. Is backing up to a mobile home park going to increase the value or decrease? Really? I'm just kidding. Yes. So, yeah, it's gonna hurt the value of that house. So I go and I try to find comparables, can't find anything. Okay. Now, when I try to look for the comparables, what have we left off on this that we haven't talked about yet that an appraiser has to do? There's two things. Okay, so yes, but that's not what I'm thinking of. So I'll give you a hint. Oh, this pen's not working very well. Oh, this one's not working very well either. What the heck? That was a horrible circle. Remember I told you I'm not an artist. That doesn't give you any hints? So how far away can they go from the house? How far away does an appraiser want to be looking for the house? I'm going to try this again to see if I can get these guys back on here. Any ideas? The radius, thank you. So that's a little far. So usually, and here's probably, and I'll say this a few other times as well as we go through this, but again, on an appraiser doing this, there's going to be exceptions to everything too, meaning like the ideal way for an appraiser is they want at least one comparable in the neighborhood. They want at least one comparable of a house that is in the neighborhood. So we want that as well as we're doing this because we're trying to do it the way an appraiser does it, right? So here's the good news about all these problems on Zoom is hopefully these guys will all just come in person from now on, right, Ellie? I'm just kidding. Okay, but they want to try to get at least one within the neighborhood, but the rest, if they are not within 1 mile of the property, then the appraiser is going to have to justify why did he use one that was further than 1 mile away. Does that make sense? So the ideal situation is we want one inside the neighborhood and the other two should be within a 1 mile radius of the property. Okay. So now with that, I'm doing this CMA on this property for this guy, and I try to do a search for within 1 mile homes that were about the same. I wanted the same style, about the same age, the square footage about the same, the lot size about the same, the condition about the same, but I can't find anything that doesn't have a basement that is also within those same areas. And then there's one other piece too that we haven't talked about. Any thoughts before I just give it to you? And hope this marker works. Although it's so light, even if it works, you're probably not gonna be able to see it. I know. Believe me, as soon as we're done, I'm gonna tell her to order some new markers. I think I have some in my office, but we're already so disjointed. I'm not throwing that in there. Okay. Any thoughts? You want me to just give it to you? Okay. So the date or the time back. Yeah, see, I told you this one works, you just can't see it. So how far back ago did it take place? Does that make sense? I don't know what. So yeah, no. Because what we're looking at on that one. Okay, sorry. I'm going to try to get these guys back on here again.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're going to hope that works. Okay. So yeah, when I'm saying the date, what I mean is how far back? How far back in time can we go on these properties to find a comparable? And so again, on this, the ideal scenario is the closer to today's date, the better. But if an appraiser has to go further than 6 months back, they have to justify why they did it. So anything within 6 months, they're good with that. But preferably, it should be more like 3 months. Okay, so we want to get it as close to today as we can using the comparables. But if we go further back than that, then we're going to have to justify why. Well, same thing on this property. I go try to find it and I can find nothing that is sold that is within this reasonable area, no basement, and that new of a home. So what do you do? You're like, I don't know. That's why we're here at this class.
You need to look farther away.
Okay, good. So one option would be to look farther away. So I tried that. I went 2 miles. Nothing.
Nothing.
3 miles. Nothing. Okay. Well, now I started thinking, okay, I'm starting to get so far away that like now you're gonna, even if I do find one, you're gonna have to adjust for, because I already asked you guys, is the same in Magna? I mean, this one was Taylorsville. So is the price of a house the same in Taylorsville as it would be in Sandy? No, because you're gonna have to adjust for the location, right? So I got far enough to where I'm like, okay, that's not working. So what do I need to do now? Well, so that's when then I kind of started thinking, okay, well, what I need to do then is find homes that are similar with all of this, but that have a basement. And I'm just gonna have to kind of ballpark like what is a basement worth? And make. So I've got to. If it had. Do all that. I came up with the price that I thought this home was worth was 185,000. I said, I think it'd probably sell for 185. So I go to my neighbor, I present it and I tell him 185,000. And he goes, well, let me tell you what Kelton, the appraiser, he said, let me tell you what Kelton said. And he says, he thinks it's worth 214,000 or it was either 214 or 217. So I can't remember which, but, and I said, well, could I look at his appraisal? Would you let me look at the appraisal? Because I was curious of like, where did he find comparables for this? So I get his appraisal and I look at him and guess what? He used comparables from Sandy to Taylorsville. And I was like, so because this is a neighbor between me and the other neighbor, I call him up. I'm like, Kelton, what are you doing? Like, you can't use a house in Sandy and say it's a comparable for one in Taylorsville and where that house is at. And he was like, well, there's nothing else. And I just had to go. So his decision was he just went further out, but he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't adjust enough for the location of, in fact, I don't think he adjusted at all for the location. So I said, okay, we'll list it at 214,000 or whatever it was. But I said, we're going to follow the pricing strategy, which we're not going to talk about that today because we'll take too much time. But in the listing presentation class, so when you guys come to the listing presentation class, I'll talk through the pricing strategy. But I said, we're going to follow the pricing strategy, which basically is if you get no showings, no offers, you got to bring the price down. If you get some showings, but no offers, you got to bring the price down, but maybe not as much. So I explained that to him. We put it on the market and guess what happened? We got no showings, no offers.
The first appraisal not really be relevant because it's not, he's not representing the bank or lender. He's just giving just ahead of time opinion.
Yeah, so that's good point on that, which that brings up another reason why I say we are better at pricing property than an appraiser is. And is because in this, usually you're right on. Usually when an appraiser is going out to do the appraisal, the lender is giving them an idea of where it needs to appraise at. So they already have a target in mind versus when we go out without, we're like shooting in the dark a little bit. And in this case, that's what happened is he was shooting in the dark a little bit of what do I think it's worth. So you're right on that. So I get it. I tell him, he goes, well, I think it'll sell for that. And I was like, okay, will you buy it if it won't? And he, no. So we put it on the market, we get no showings, no offers, we reduce the price, we end up selling the home for like 189. So a little higher than I thought. Did we just lose? Are you guys still there? Okay, they got thumbs up. I somehow now my computer died on it, so. Sorry. Hope you guys don't go down again or it's over. Okay, now my computer's back. It looks like so. Okay. So we put it on the market, we get it for 189. I then, of course, call up the appraiser here and I go, hey, guess what? It sold for where I said it would sell, not, and you know what his answer was? I need to be a better agent and I should have got more money for the house. Yeah, no. Okay. So here's the thing.
But what did it ultimately appraise for at the bank? But did the other people have a loan?
Yes, the other people got a loan. I don't know what it appraised for, but it appraised for the purchase price of the 189 or whatever. Yeah, so anyway, okay, so keep in mind, this is what we're working on, okay, is that we're gonna start with this being our premise. So now cross your fingers that the MLS is still gonna work here. And we're gonna pull the screen down here and we're gonna,
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
About the condition of the home.
okay,
So when appraisers go, do they look at things like the fridge, the oven, like, do they look at those things?
say that again, do they look
Do
at
they
what?
look at like the fridge, the oven, like?
Oh, the fridge in the oven.
I just like, I have a house that I
no.
seen next week that the appraiser, well, the appraisal came like 21,000 over what I got my clients paid. And like, it's one of those houses that you can't open the oven all the way because it will run into the handle of the fridge. Like it has all those little seams that I have run into the house a couple times. I know those things because I've been looking around. And so in my opinion, the appraisal came over, you know, because it's just one of the houses that has weird located things that if you wanna make it more functional, you have to tear down a wall, you need to change a window, you know, so to me, it's also like, yeah, they should not be paid more than this at all for this house. But the appraisal still came like 21,000 over. So I was just like, do they even look at those things? Because the functionality of the house was definitely not, you know, and it had been on the market for like 45 plus days, you know, so we brought out the price quite a bit, but I was like, I just don't know if they ever paid attention to those things when they came in doing the appraisal.
Yeah, so the answer to that is, should they look at the functionality of it? Yes. Do they look at the functionality of it? I would say typically no.
Okay.
Okay, cross your fingers that this will stay on here, but, okay. So they should look at the functionality of that, but I would say, and again, part of this is because it's an art, not a science, it really kind of depends on which appraiser goes and looks at the house too. Meaning, if you have an appraiser that goes and looks at that house and catches that, ooh, the functionality of this isn't that great. But I doubt most of them, like you were saying with the fridge and the oven, they're probably not going to catch that, hey, you couldn't do that. Which, it's funny you say that. In my house, we remodeled our kitchen and we just put a dent in the refrigerator door from the handle on the oven. But it's been 4 or 5 years, but we just, for the first time ever, like my wife was opening the oven as I opened the fridge and they hit and put a dent in the fridge door. So it's funny that you said that because I'm like, yeah, it kind of messed up on my house. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna go through and look at this property to come up with a price for this house. Now, here's how I typically do it. Is typically the first thing that I'm gonna do when I'm doing a CMA is I'm gonna come here to the MLS, which I'm gonna be really careful. Like I'll answer some questions, MLS specific if you have them. But what I don't want to do is turn this class into an let me teach you how to use the MLS class. Like I'll answer a few basic ones, but for the most part, I'm just going to be showing you how to do it. And if you want to do some MLS classes, if you go up under the help tab, you can go to some training videos that teach you more on the MLS. But for me, I usually start out with like the first thing. So let's just assume we got a phone call or I set an appointment for prospecting and somebody said, we want you to come out and look at our house and tell us what we could sell it for. The first thing that I'm going to do is I come onto the MLS and I usually go to this full search. And there are probably other ways you could do this and maybe even faster or better. I don't know. But this is how I do it. And then I scroll down here to where I'm going to see the house number. And then I start by just putting in the house number of the property. Okay, so you can see, and I usually say I do this clear criteria so that everything's wiped out. Then I scroll down and put in the house number. Well, you can see there are 62 properties that match that house number. So one of two things from this point is either I'm going to just look at all 62 to narrow it down, which we could do. That wouldn't take that long. Or usually what I do next, if I have that many, is I'm gonna come back here. I don't remember where I'm at now. Okay. So I go to the county, usually is the next spot that I'm gonna go to and just say, okay, I only want to see the properties that are in Salt Lake County. Let's see what that is. So that drops it to 32. For me, 32 is not too many to look at. So I'm just gonna hit view results. And then once I hit view results, I'm now just gonna look for the address, which here it is right here. So that's why I'm saying 30. You could scroll through here pretty quick and just be like, oh, there's the address of the one that I wanted. And you will have like this Walnut View circle. You can see there's one here, there's one here, there's one here. So every time the property has been on the MLS, it'll show up based on how I just did that. So I'm just looking for one of them. I don't even care which one it is. The first one I see, I'll come over here and I'll click on the MLS. Good. So typically for me, once I get this, I'll usually just hit print and I print it out so that I have a copy of the printout. But the main thing I'm coming here to look at is one is to get that printout. And then two is I like to come and click on history. I want to see the history of what's gone on with this property. So you will notice on here, and again, this is just personal preference. Somebody else teaching this class might be like, oh, I never do that. That's fine. I'm just telling you how I like to do it, and then you guys can figure out how you like to. But for me, I always just like to come and get a feel for like what's gone on with this home. And more so what I'm concerned is this more recent stuff up here than worried about this older stuff down here. So for me, I just usually am going to take the first one I see, I'm going to click on history, and then it so happens that I clicked on the most recent one. But if I hadn't, and this was the most recent one, I would come and just click on that MLS number to pull it up there. Does that make sense? I just want to get to the most recent one. So I click on it, here it is, that's the one I'm going to print. Okay. But I like to look at this because it's going to show me here, this property sold in 2012, right? So we can see that. So I would know in 2012, the owner of this home paid $125,000. So now if we were going out to meet with them to sell their house, what do we know based on the fact that they paid $125,000 for it? They probably have some pretty good equity in the house.
Good.
Like that's kind of the first thing I'm looking at. Now, that's not 100% true because people refinance, they get home equity loans and all that kind of stuff. But pretty good chance, and just especially based on what's happened in the market the last 2 years, pretty good chance every house has equity right now, right? But I just like to get a feel for that. The other thing I like to do before I even go out to the house is I'm going to come and click on this. And I'm going to scroll through the photos to take a look and see, which by the way, you guys can't see it very well on here. On Zoom, probably. This is not what it looked like when I owned the house, just FYI. As we go through, which some of it's good, some's bad. Like for instance, this had tile now. I didn't have tile here. I had carpet, which was stupid. But I do not have this orange and green wall. So I'm just going to and this was carpet, not linoleum. But I'm going to scroll through to look at, I did put this carpet in. It's pretty old by that. But I'm just going to kind of scroll through to get a feel for what's the condition of the home when they bought it. Now, again, in this particular scenario, this is, 10 years ago this happened. So like it's probably not the same condition. So it probably doesn't mean as much to do that today. Like I'm probably not going to worry about as much that today as I would if the home had just sold last year or 2 years ago. Then I'm going to be looking, hey, what was that? At least I know what I'm going out to get an idea of what I'm seeing. Okay. So I just print this off, take it out. I go look at the house. And then from there, so for me, which again, on this, it's personal preference. But typically for me, I will tell you, even still today, 26 plus years later, My personal preference on doing a CMA is I like to go look at the house first, then go back to the office and do my CMA. And there are other people, like I say, that would come in and go, I never do that. I go out and I just do my CMA based on the questions I've asked the seller, and I go out and present. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There are times that I do that as well. But if I have my choice on it, meaning if in a perfect world I could just do it, I like to show up once to look at the house, then go back a second time to present the CMA and all that kind of stuff. Okay?
Well, what is the main reason you will take that on?
So the reason I like to do it is because a lot of times once I get out there, I see stuff that I wouldn't have known about. But the main reason is I use it as a way to kind of find out information from the seller, build a connection with the seller. So, but if I have that connection, I probably would do it more as a just show up one time and do it. So for me, it's more of if I feel like I need the connection, it's more time, no question. Like, it takes more time out of your day to go drive out there, look at it, go back, do your CMA, then go back again. But I just personally like to do it. That doesn't mean you have to do it that way. It's just how I like to do it. What, Rick, when you do them, do you like doing a two-step? Well, when you're doing a listing, do you do a two-step or you just like to go once? Yeah, so my preference is two-step, but like I say, there are times when I wouldn't do it that way. But
So,
okay,
sorry, Ross. And then for you, Rick, what's the reason you want to go see the property?
Look,
before-
the more information you can gather to be more prepared to handle any objection that comes along. What a lot of big banks want you to do is look at the economic obsolescence to any property. So my belief is, as in my two-step process, I'm looking for those economic obsolescence that are gonna come along and defeat the price of the property. You can't do that, just going, oh, yep, here it is on the
So,
MLS.
so that ties back to what you said, Davinia. We can go out and find out, are there some things that make this, that when a buyer shows
That's it.
up, they're gonna be like, oh, I don't like that, the way that layout is or whatever. The
I had a
functionality.
backyard that backed from like here to Chick-fil-A. A sewer plant. When the wind shifted, that's a big, barbecues are out. So yeah, that's a
No,
massive.
that's why you barbecue, to try to.
Right. Eventually, you just get over.
Yeah, when you go to the open house on that house, they've got a huge barbecue zone, it's just ranked up.
Don't look in trees planted so you can't see it.
But freezing everything.
Right. It's just an economic obsolescence. People buy into a lifestyle before they buy into the home. The only way you can price is based on that two-step
Yeah.
process.
So that's for me, and again, but there are definitely times that I've done the ones, I just go out at once and that works, so. Go ahead.
Because the reason I'm asking those questions right now, the listing I have is back in the Mountain View corridor.
Uh-huh.
And the seller see it as a plus because it says I have a private backyard. But I wonder if that is a concern to people to have the corridor so close to the house for noise.
Well, I was
No,
gonna
no,
say,
it's
if
not
you're
bad.
standing in the backyard or even in the house, can you hear the freeway?
No, not during the day, but I wonder at night when you're going to bed and everything is more quiet.
Yeah. That's just it, is, so that's where, but the fact that you even wonder that,
I just
guess
wonder.
what buyers are gonna wonder?
There's that's the ticket, right? So it's definitely perceived economic obsolescence, so it doesn't matter what we think. If you're thinking it's somebody else, most likely, what it does is limit your space of buyers. So you're gonna still sell it for a good price, but that ability to liquidate the property in a time frame that makes sense is gonna deplete a little bit, so. And you only can do that by putting it on the market, doing a pricing strategy and moving from there. Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, so now, once I've gone out and looked at the house, I come back to the office, I'm now gonna do my CMA. So I always start this process doing it the way that an appraiser is going to do it. So we're gonna do that same thing, okay? So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I wanna say, I wanna find only sold properties. And then for me, I usually jump to the map and say, I wanna see properties that are within. So again, I'll give you a little tool here. I always like to do this radius tool is how I start it. So if you come here and click on radius and then come over and click on set radius location. I just usually default to say 1 mile from, and then you can either put in the MLS number or you could put in the address. And I usually copy and paste the MLS number, but I realized as soon as I hit clear criteria, I didn't do it, but that's fine. So I'm just gonna throw in the address. Hit set criteria. So it's brought up now. Wow. So this has got 293 properties that have sold in that 1 mile radius in the last year. Because it defaulted to a year now, which remember, we don't want to go that far back. So instead, I'm either going to change the sold date here, or usually what I do is, is number of days back. And for me, again, this, I'm going to keep saying this, and so I apologize, but it's an art, not a science. So for me, how far back I'm going to go kind of depends on, for me, I'll just tell you what's going through my head right now. When would you guys say the market changed? How long ago? Well, let me say it this way. When did rates all of a sudden shoot up? About May, right? So to me, I wouldn't want to go 6 months back. 6 months back, what was happening in March is not going to be the same as what's happening today in the market. So I don't want to go that far back. So for me, I'm going to look on here and say, but normally I would do this anyway, is either I'm going to say 90 days or 120 days. I will tell you, more times than not, I go put in 120 there, but because of what's kind of been with the market, I'm going to put 90 today. Okay. So I want to see 90 days back, and then let's see what that does. So that took us from 290 something down to 65. Well, I still don't want that. So what else should we put in based on our criteria we had up there to narrow this down? The first thing, since you guys aren't answering, of course, I didn't give you much time, but I didn't give you much time because I was like, I don't want you to be wrong. So
He just doesn't want me to answer.
yeah, okay, that's true. We gotta be done with class, so we can't have readings. All right, so the first thing typically that I'm gonna go to next that we haven't done yet is the style. So because I for sure need properties that are the same style, right? So I'm gonna say style on this. Now, another thing that I will tell you, and this doesn't apply too much anymore, but just as an example of the art, not a science, is what would you say the style, hopefully you paid attention to the picture, what was the style of that house? Yeah, I've heard 3 things and 3 of them were wrong. So who said the last? Closer. It's good. Yeah, so tri-level, multi-level, it would be a multi-level. So I'm going to use the tri-level, multi-level. Okay. Now, this where I'm saying this art versus science. I haven't seen this much lately, but going back maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, a lot of times agents would have marketed that house instead of marketing it as a multi-level, they would have marketed it as a 2-story. And their thinking being is a 2-story is going to be more attractive to a buyer. They're going to look for a 2-story. So they would put it on as a 2-story rather than a multi-level, which I don't think you should do, and thankfully it's not happening as much. But another example of that is I know one agent, and don't do this. I know one agent that if he listed a bigger home that had a 2-car garage, he would put on the MLS that it had a 3-car garage because he knew people would go on for, if you're looking for a bigger, 3,500, 4,000, 5,000 square foot home that has a 2-car garage, people want a 3-car garage, and he knew that it wouldn't show up in their criteria because they're going to say 3-car garage. So he would market it as a 3-car garage to get people to look at it because he thought they would end up liking pictures and go, well, let's go look at it anyway.
Right.
Doesn't
that originate a complaint?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Don't do that because you should give a true picture of the property. Now, what he would do is if somebody ever called him, he'd go, oh, shoot, I better catch that and fix it. Don't do it.
So
All right.
Russ, right now, you've got the division cracking down on that stuff.
Yeah, and that's probably why we're not seeing it as much anymore, but, okay, so now I put in tri-level, multi-level, it's dropped us down to 15. Now, here, how many do I want to have?
Three.
Yeah, somewhere around 3. I mean, I'm okay, even like, to some extent, I could sort through those 15 to find ones that were the most comparable. But I'm gonna try to narrow it down a little bit more. So remember, we're within a mile right now. We got tri-level, multi-level, which this little drop down here will show you. So I've got sold properties 90 days back, tri-level, multi-level. Well, the next thing that I'm probably gonna say that I want to see is the square footage. So I'm gonna scroll down here to total square footage, and it was 1,800 square feet. How many, what should I put in as the range? There's not a right answer, by the way.
Between 17, maybe
15 to 20, 15
If-
to 21.
15 to 20, 21, you said 17 to what? Like, this is where, like, there's not a right answer on that. I'll tell you how I would do it for me, but I usually try to look at it in terms of a few hundred square feet each direction. But here's what I will say, here's how my mind thinks of it is, the bigger the house, the bigger the range. I'm gonna put, the smaller the house, the smaller the range. So for me, I'm probably, and somewhere around 10% is probably the number I would say that I use. But again, that's just me. So I'm gonna say it was about 1,800, so I'm gonna say 1,600. But I'm gonna only put for the bottom one, instead of 2,000, I'm gonna put 1,999. Why?
I think 2000 would be too big. They will jump the next level.
That's my thinking, is somebody that says, I want a home with at least 2,000 square feet. Is probably not gonna consider this house. So, and again, it doesn't mean I'm right. Like, please hear, everything that I do here this is how I do the art of it, you know. But that's how I do. There would be nothing wrong with throwing 2,000, but just for me, I feel like when I've worked with buyers, I have them say at least 2,000 square feet. Well, so if I threw 2,000 in here and then use a comparable that has 2,000, I feel like we're not talking the same buyers. So just how I do it, doesn't mean it's right. Okay, so now we're down to 6. That's probably good enough for me, but we could go through and say year built. We could say, okay, it was built in 1993. So same thing with year built. The newer the house, the less of a range. The older the house, the bigger the range I'm going to use. So because it was in the 90s, we could potentially say, all right, let's look from 1985 to 19. And again, I'm going to do 1999 on that for the same reason. Somebody saying I want a home built at least in 2000 is, in my mind, is going to be a little bit different. So that brought us down to 4 houses, which that might actually be too few to look at, but I'm gonna get rid of that just to see if it was on the upper end. Well, only one, so we had one older and one newer, so I'm gonna get rid of it just to see what those were, but because it really might not make a difference, but okay, so let's take a look at these 6. So I'm gonna hit view results. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at from these 6 properties. And here's the idea. The next, and we're not gonna do this with all 6 of these, I'll do it with 1 or 2 just as an example. But what we want to do next is take a look at the properties to find the ones that are the most comparable. So actually, I'll just show you real quick. So I like using the agent full report when I'm doing it. So from here, then ultimately, the first thing I'm going to be looking at is our subject property had 3 bedrooms up and 1 bath. This one has 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. The basement on our subject property had 2 bedrooms and a full bath. And then our subject had a half bath on the main as well. So what do you think? Keep that as a comparable or not? Vince is shaking his head. No, nobody else has done a thing. You got all your poker faces on. You're not, I'm not saying.
So all of those are the tri-level, so.
Yes.
What?
Yeah, all of them are should be the same style of house. Now, the other thing I would do as well is I would be clicking on this and then going through and saying, is the condition of this home the same, similar to our subject property? So which I left out a key piece. I showed you some photos of the subject property and it wasn't great. Let's assume 10 years ago they bought it and that just last year they put in new carpet, new paint, like they've totally remodeled. So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say it's like an 8 of our subject property, okay? So if that being the case, would I want to keep this one as a comparable? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's I would, but that have to be like a 10. Like, can you have some?
Okay. Well, I think it depends on how much you have to choose from. I mean, you want to get as close to what you have.
Yes.
So you can get it accurate. If you got a shithole, then compare it to shithole.
Okay, so look at this one here. This one, so when I got to this one, this was the 1984, but when I said 85, and when you look at that, that's a different, even though it's a tri-level,
So,
multi-level.
so Roy, how many bedrooms was your property and your bathrooms?
Total was 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
Oh, I bet.
But 3 bedrooms up, 1 full bath up, a half bath on the main and a full bath and 2 bedrooms in the base. So I would not use this, so let's get rid of it. So this one's a 3-bedroom, 2 full baths. Now, it's interesting because I use this property every time I teach this class. And it's been interesting over the years to watch because there was a time when I taught this class that I would have said, do not use this one as a comparable. Because it had a master bath. Which I said that in California
And then
one day, and somebody was like, you can't say that anymore. You have to say primary bathroom. So every time I say that now, I go, oh yeah, primary. It had a primary, no, was it primary?
Yeah, I can say that.
I don't know.
Because did you come from California? Oh, yeah.
Whole political correct.
Yeah.
Right.
When the funny thing is, we had a black guy in the class and then I was teaching it and I said, does that offend you? If I said master bath, would it offend you? And he goes, no. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Because I don't mean it. It's just what we call it, and I get it. So anyway. But I think that was the right term that we were saying now. The politically correct one is the primary thing. I don't know. Anyway,
Primary.
Preliminary.
preliminary. is that what you said?
If we call it
I
main
like
bedroom,
bath
What?
main bed.
in the main.
I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't have taken us off track. Sorry. Having 2 bathrooms upstairs. There was a time in this area I would have said that should not be a comparable. But as I've done this same area, over time, the last few years, like the houses with 2 bathrooms upstairs versus only 1 are selling for the same. So remember I said to you, there's this gut feel where you have to kind of somewhat learn. I just have learned that it doesn't matter. So to me today, even though it's got that, it's going to be more desirable, yes, but price wise hasn't made that much of a difference. So I probably would keep it. So keep it or not? Did we look at I didn't look at photos, did I? Did we?
No, but
No, we didn't. Keep it or no?
I would.
Yes.
Okay. Next. This one's this one's more of a tri-level than a multi-level, but that's fine. And like I said, same thing I noticed with 2 bedrooms versus 1, it hasn't really made that big of a difference. So I would probably keep that one based on that, but let's look at condition. What do you think?
This
Yeah,
one looks,
keep it.
this
Keep
one
it. Okay, good.
looks better than the subject, no?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but we're assuming the subject's like it's been remodeled.
Oh.
So pretend it's been remodeled. Okay, this one's about the same, 3-bedroom, 2 baths up again, but like I said, that hasn't seemed to matter lately. So this one you can tell has been, yeah, this one's even this one is better condition, I would say.
Yeah, that's decent.
It does have a smaller backyard, so how does that affect? Is that another one that was?
Yeah.
18?
So it is a little bit smaller yard, yeah, that would be
sold
something to consider. What'd you say?
I sold that one time, once on a.
This house?
Yes. Long time ago.
All right, you know me, Rick. Let's find out if you really did.
Guess not.
Must have been before 1996.
Yeah, no,
I
about
don't know.
94. It's owned by Joe Green.
Right now?
Never, no. No, he,
Oh, I kind of,
yeah,
okay,
we're in that neighborhood. They all look like.
that is true. Me too. Okay, keep it. Oh,
I don't know the basketball hoops backwards.
Yeah.
Where was the basketball?
Nice, right there, man.
Oh, what the heck?
That's
Who caught that?
called the art. Was there another one in front of it slower?
No. It's on the grass, so that's weird. All right, keep it.
That black kitchen,
Yeah,
No.
You don't like the kitchen?
No.
I
black.
would keep it.
Okay.
by
Okay, so this is, but see, this is where you can see, some people would keep it, some wouldn't. This is how, when you go out, you're gonna have a little bit differing values, because some might say yes, some might say no. Okay, so based on that,
Will you keep it?
would I?
Uh,
3-bedroom, 1.5
The way the
bedroom,
design.
37 Wakefield Drive. I probably. I don't know, that basketball thing's throwing me.
Does the other one- does the other one have RV parking, Russ?
Yes,
It's tight.
that's, I'm guessing that must just spin around, I don't know.
Do yours have a separate laundry room?
Yes,
If that one has a laundry room.
yeah. I probably would keep it, yeah. So here's the thing for me, so we've got 5 here. Properties, remember, there was one that was 2,000, I think, though, wasn't there? Didn't we lose one for that? Let's go look at that, because I might get rid of that one.
it doesn't.
Oh, right there, yeah, this 2002. I don't know, let me look at the condition of it.
It's bigger.
It's like your house, right?
Yeah, only on a way smaller scale. And not so much color.
You got a separate entrance to the. Yeah, I don't know if I would keep that one, but
Why not?
just because of your big year bill. Is all. Okay, so in fact, let me just remove it. We'll just say. So based on that, what would you guys say the purchase price of our subject properties should be? So this one sold for 480. This sold for 482.5. I'm actually really excited for this. I'll tell you why.
Right in there.
This one sold for 510. And this one
Our
sold,
budget.
which I'm okay with taking core properties out, and this one sold for 500. Okay, so what would you recommend to the seller that we sell this property for? How much?
Whatever.
A what? Okay, 440? Okay. What about the rest of you?
What was
I
the-
want everybody to give me a number.
So-
You guys
so
on
what was-
Zoom,
So,
you guys on Zoom, type it in the chat box.
so what, one is 500, right?
One is 500,
89.
one is 410,
490.
one is 482, and the other one, excuse me, is 480. So you got 480 to 510. And they've sold for it.
495.
I will say for 90.
490,
490,
499.
499.
440.
Okay, there's not a right answer, so I just am curious of, and now, that's how an appraiser is gonna do it, is essentially they're gonna take 3 of these, the ones that they feel like are the most closely the same, and then what the appraiser is gonna do is, and I'm not gonna do this, because I already told you I don't like it, but I'll pull up the CMA report here. The appraiser is gonna have something like this, and then they're gonna have in what the bedrooms were, so the bedrooms on ours was 5 bedrooms. 3 baths, so it's really 2.5, but, oh, because yeah, sorry, that asks for 4. Total square footage. Rebuild. Okay, so just using this rough estimate here, this is saying 494, 255. So, but that's how an appraiser is basically gonna do this, and then you can see it makes all these adjustments.
What would you have said, like what price would you give in the house?
I don't know, so I wouldn't yet, because I don't know yet. Now, here's why. Here's the problem that I have with it, is this is only part of the information I need to make a decision.
Oh, you did.
But an appraiser, this is how they're gonna do it, and then they're gonna go, okay, 494, 255. Now, they're gonna put more time into it than that, but essentially that's what they're gonna do. Now,
So,
go ahead.
so you take this number as a base number, and then if you see something different on the house, like probably has more value for you of a buyer, you of that amount. I don't know. So this is like, you take it like a base number, and
Yeah.
if you go to the house and it's more pretty or
Oh,
has more function, so you go up with the number? Like
yeah, so well, I
97 or
don't
something
use
like that?
this report.
Oh,
I personally don't use this, and
Okay.
I'll show you why in just a minute.
okay.
But this is how an appraiser goes about doing it. And I'm gonna, remember I said, I feel like we do a better job of pricing property. I'm about to show you why. Because an appraiser stops with that. This is what they do. Here's your value. Okay. But what do we not know?
The real condition of the house.
Well, no, we should, because we've gone out and looked at, oh, you mean of the comparables? Is that what
No,
you
the
mean?
condition, if you go in person, you are gonna find out things that you don't see in pictures.
Yeah, like the functionality of the house.
Okay, but you're gonna still know that because it's like property, right?
We're gonna, but remember, we assumed we've already gone out and looked at the other one, the subject property. So what do we not know? Okay, I'll help you then. So I'm gonna go back here. Here's the challenge. For me, the way an appraiser and what we've just done, the way we just approached pricing the property is we just did it based upon thinking like a seller. But does a buyer think like a seller?
No.
No. How does a buyer decide what house they're gonna buy?
What he likes.
Okay, what they like, but what if there are 3 houses that they all like?
Cheaper one that meets their needs.
Okay, good. Keep that in mind, is the buyer is gonna buy the house that they feel like provides the best value to them. So if you have 3 houses that were identical, which one are they gonna buy? They're identical.
The cheaper.
The cheaper one.
They're gonna buy the cheapest one, right? So that's the challenge with what we've done right now, is we approached it like a seller, not a buyer. So now let's approach it more like a buyer. So the next thing I wanna look at is,
That's not good.
I want to use all the same information, but I want to see what properties are under the act or under contract for backup. So there's 6. So now let's see if you change your mind on what you think these homes should sell for. I'm actually really excited to do this because for the last 2 years, every time I've taught this class,
Oh, which is-
it's like, I'm all, number one, like, I'm always like, why did I sell? Did you guys notice what I sold the house for?
25.
No, I sold it for more than that. That's was what they, that was somebody else. But I sold it for like 146 and I'm like, oh, when we, even still, whatever value we come up with, I'm gonna be like, why did I not keep this house? All right. But I'm excited to see just with the changes in the market, what's happening.
So.
Okay, so now,
So Ross, you are very nice. You are sorry you didn't convert them into a rental.
yes, I am very sorry. Every house I've ever owned, with the exception of the ones I currently own, I wish I still own them. That's the sad thing. All the ones I don't own, I wish I still own. And with the exception of one, the other 3, I wish I didn't own. So if anybody's interested in some property in Mississippi, just take over the payments, it's yours. You can have it. And in theory, there's positive cash flow. So just let me know. Although I say that, and then I had somebody one time actually want to take me up on it. My wife was like, as much as she hates them worse than I do. She's like, there's no way we're doing it. All right, now, look at these. These are the under contracts. So we're not gonna go through and take the time to do it because we need to be done here shortly, but like that one's one I wouldn't keep just based on looking at the picture. That's a twin home. But going through these, assuming condition wise is probably fairly close. that change your opinion of what you would, look at this one. Listed at 515, sold for 459.
Wow.
Now what would you price it at? Listed at 485, sold for 464. Or sorry, no, these are not sold. Reduced the price to there to get an offer. We don't know what it sold. Listed at 485, reduced it to 470, basically to get an offer. Okay, so now what would you list the house for? But remember, if we were an appraiser, we would have gone in and said 490.
450.
What?
450. I'm still in 440.
You're still at 440?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You went 440 to begin with, and I was, why did you go 440 to begin with?
Because I feel like the house, the other houses that they're selling, it's because I've been in the MLS too long.
Okay, I was gonna
So I
say,
really don't
you
want
must
to
be
find out.
showing properties out in that
Yeah.
area or something.
You know
Yes.
why?
Okay.
Because she was thinking as a buyer agent, not as a seller.
Right,
That's why.
yeah, that, when you said it, I should have asked you then why, but I didn't want to ask because I didn't want you to influence it. Okay, what do we still not know though? We know what generated an offer on August 2nd. But that doesn't mean that's what's gonna generate an offer today. Because are the buyers out looking today, looking at these houses? No, because these ones are already under contract, they're off the market. So what do we need to look at?
What's still out there?
What's, yeah, what are the actives that are still available today? So now let me go to active. See what comes up. The good news is, there's still only 4 that are for sale. That's the good news. There's still not a ton of inventory. Bad news is, look at where, now, but now look at this. Look at this one priced at 490. Think that's gonna sell? Just hit the market today.
No.
I don't, not with rates, the way they're going.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I'm not surprised. Who was that, Mom? Oh, you didn't see through the agent?
No, I forget the commission. Oh, wow.
Oh, that is a good point too, but
Yeah, so, yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
that's the thing I'm excited most. You guys should be excited for this market. We've gone from people offering 2% to look at it, 3.25.
Yeah,
But here's the problem. It's way overpriced, so nobody's gonna pay
it is.
that.
That's why he's offering 325.
That's it.
Yeah, because he knows it's overpriced. There's a lot of truth to that with some agents.
Yes.
All right, look at this one here is on Walnut, so this one's right in the neighborhood, 479, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Now I'm curious on the commission on that. Oh, 2%.
2%.
Yeah, it'll be.
All right, let's look at the condition on this one for real quick. It's good. It's a little different, but. Okay. 479 there, but then this one's 440. Let's see but it started at 460. Not updating cabinets, just painting and stuff, so. But 20 days on the market, started for. All right, so now what do you guys think price?
450.
You're still 450?
Well, yeah, because if we price it too high, then we can sit in there for who knows how long.
No, I'm good with it. So that's just it. Here's how you want the sellers to think. So for me, here's how I would do this. I would have printed out 3 or 4 of those solds. I would have then gone to the under contracts, printed 3 or 4 of those. Then I would have come to here and I would print out all 4 of these. And how you want to present this to the seller is, here's what the home sold for. But we're not in that market anymore. And the proof of that is, look at what happened to get the people who currently have gotten offers from buyers. Look at where they're priced now. And then we would be saying, this is what we're competing against. Now, the risk you run on this, where depending on where the house is, if it's anywhere close to this last one, that Wakefield, sorry, for the people on Zoom, I got that. If it's anywhere close to this, I would take this as a comparable, but if it's not, if that one's a few blocks away, I'm not even gonna take that one. I would only take the other 3. Because if you bring that one, they're gonna go, oh, well, we should price there.
Oh, okay, because it's too high.
Yeah. So I would be bringing probably these 3, the bottom 3. And I would be saying to the seller, now remember, we had the conversation earlier of that you're not looking for the highest bidder because the seller's it. We're looking for the next highest bidder. Well, the next highest bidder is out looking at these houses. And so we need to position their home to be the best value of these. And is that 440 or is it 480? It's probably not 480 based on what the under contracts were showing us. So to me, I would say, whoever said 450, I would say,
I said, okay.
you know, but maybe even 440, I don't know. Like, I would probably be going in saying that, well, because look, let's just look real quick on this.
Let's look at the 440.
So this one started at 460, went to 440, when?
That
On
one doesn't
September
look
6th.
inside, though.
What's that?
I said that one doesn't look as good inside.
That's true.
Not that other one, so.
But it's since September 6th, it still has, it dropped the price to 440 since September 6th, and it still hasn't sold. So the other thing that I would do is I probably would be on those under contracts. I would have been looking to see how long were they on the market, what, when they reduced the price to where they did, how long after that did it sell? That's the kind of stuff I would be.
So just to be sure, you are taking the ones that they were sold on their contract and on the market active. So
Yes.
you are taking some of each
Yes.
category.
And there, some people, I don't know, Rick, if you do this or not, some people will take 3 or 4 expireds as well.
I do.
And I typically don't, but you can for sure.
So why would you do that, Abby?
I want to show them where they don't want to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you are gonna do that, you're approaching it as, do you want to be a sold? Do you want to be under contract? Do you want to be active, or do you want to be expired? Well, we don't want to expire. Okay, well, then we don't want to price where they did. So I would probably say, actually, for me, in the market we're in and what we're coming into even more so, I probably would take the expireds to show them the people who priced it at 490 ended up expiring. I would probably do it to show them, if we do it the same, we're gonna get the same.
Yeah.
result.
How long take to be an expired? 6 months?
Well, it
Depending on
depends on
contract.
when you list the property, how long you list it for, but typically 6 months is what most. Oh, I just remembered, sorry, for the people on Zoom, I don't think I asked you guys, make sure you put in your name and license number. And even for you guys here, I had you put the license number on there. I really only need the license number one time on these 6 classes. You don't need to write it every single time, but I need it at least once. So if you didn't have it today, fine, write it down in the next, on the next class. But same for you guys on Zoom, make sure you put in name, how it shows up on the license, and your license number in the chat box. And that'd be good. Okay, any other questions?
This is an eye opener.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So then how do you present it to your client? You just tell them a number?
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. So whether this is a sold, active, or under contract doesn't really matter. So I hope we didn't lose the internet.
No.
We may have. Let's see if they're frozen on there. Nope, they're still there. You're not frozen. You can hear. Okay, but basically what I would do is take each of these properties. I will not pull it up.
MLS is down.
Okay.
So
So
you-
basically what I would be doing is I'd print off the client full report. We've been looking at the agent full report. I print off the client full report. The reason I do the client full report is because it doesn't have who the agent is that way. It shows your name presented by. I one time went on a listing and I presented the properties and I used the agent full report, and this was with a friend. And they said to me, hey, maybe we should list our house with whoever, some name. And I'm like, why? And they said, well, because all 3 of the sold properties you showed us were sold by that realtor. And I was like, oh, I'll never take that again. So now I do the client full report, which says presented by and has your name on it.
Unless it's expired, because you can show
Yeah.
2%.
Expired.
Yeah.
1.5%.
So then what I do is I'm gonna then show up with those printouts and say, here's how this house is similar to yours. Here's how it's worse than yours, or here how it's better. And then I just go, and then at the end, I say to the seller, based on that, where do you think we should price your property? I try not to tell them an amount. I say, based on what we've seen, where do you think we should price it? And then they usually will say, well, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, I'll tell you what I think, but I want to know first,
You're right.
based on the information, what are you thinking we should price it? And then here's the thing, I will price it at whatever price they want if they'll follow our pricing strategy. So. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks for being here. So
Thank you.
Tuesday's class will be Revsy workshop, or no, sorry, Revsy with Rob. So Rob Oakey will be the one teaching it, and